putting their names in the chat. I would really like to hear from people who are the first time joining us. Please write down your name. How did you hear about us? And that this is your first time. And of course, I want to hear from all of our friends as well.
Hi, Huri.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Huri.
I will ask everyone to mute themselves and communicate through the chat. We will definitely have a chance to talk in the end. You know how I like to open up the mics and the cameras and connect with you all, but I'm just so grateful seeing everyone's faces here. Let's give everyone another minute to join us. I see so many in line here trying to get in. Thank you again for taking the time to be here on such an important topic. And of course, as you know, our usual monthly meetings, what we used to call business meeting, which I didn't like that word, so we changed it into NGO CSW updates. We will be talking about that in a minute. Just waiting for everyone to be here. Let's wait till 1:05 because I also would like to take a minute again, as we used to do, and honor all those areas in conflict around the world. I wanted to really bring you into a moment of silence, if you all don't mind, to think about all those who are suffering and fighting at so many levels, right? It could be in conflict, it could be with COVID, it could be with poverty, with any other issues that unfortunately we're all working so hard to stop, but we haven't been able to stop yet. I'm so glad to see some of our speakers already. Hi, Mavic, and the Deputy Minister from Austria. We are so grateful, Mr. Anton Wislaki, for being here. Thank you, and thank you for being here for the whole meeting. And I hope you don't think some of our discussions are not boring. Ahead of our panel, we're going to talk about CSW virtual platform. So glad you're here. And I want to just also, before we start, take a moment to thanking Devin again. I know you all know her by now. We can't do what we do without our kick-ass office manager, our co-chair of our young leaders, young professionals, and she's handling all of the technical parts today. Thank you, Devin. I know you don't like to shine too much sometimes, but we're going to keep shining a light on you as one of our youth leaders. And I do hope we have at least one or two of our interns. Let me turn my phone off. All right, still people coming in. So let's take, thank you all for being here. I'm gonna write this in case people come in and hear nothing. Devin, I know this is last minute. I don't think we can put any music on, right, for 1 minute. Sorry to put you in the spot, but people will hopefully read the chat and understand. All right, everyone. Just shake your sillies off, relax, have a seat in your chair, close your eyes, and I'm going to keep time. Think about all the suffering in the world and how our united energies can bring peace and harmony, we hope. And let's take a moment of silence to honor them. Thank you. All right, take a deep breath and welcome back to our monthly meeting. Thank you again for all of you who joined us, and I see more people coming in. Please come on in. We just had a moment of silence, honoring all those fighting in the front lines in every single way. Okay, here we go. So I can't keep up with all the messages in the chat. I'm not sure how many people are new to our meeting, but welcome you all. I'm excited to make some announcements for our finally soon launching virtual platform. If you are new to this group, NGO CSW is tasked every year to bring global women's and girls' voices into the Commission of Status of Women. So over the last 10 years that I've been involved in, I've seen such a big growth in participation. We're so proud and lucky to be able to host over the years. Up until last year, we were expecting close to 20,000 women and young activists. And then of course, COVID happened and we canceled. So this year we're prepared. We're not waiting permission from COVID to meet in person, or even we're not exactly sure if UN is going to decide to open its doors by March. The Bureau has not met yet. I checked with the chair this past week. They're not sure. They most probably think there will be some in person for local New Yorkers perhaps, but not encouraging anybody to travel to come to these global meetings, which is completely understandable. As chair and executive committee members of NGO CSW, we made the decision over the summer that we are not going to wait for permission if we're meeting in person or not, and that we are going to take the responsibility to build a platform that is inclusive and accessible to everyone in the world. So you don't even have to spend money traveling. Your voices will be heard. And the goal is to really make it as interactive and as in-person as possible, which is one of the reasons why it's taking us a little bit longer to find the right platform to make the announcement and open it for registration and parallel events. Those of you who've been to NGO CSW forums before, you know our most popular item or gathering is what we call parallel events, which is how UN does their side events. We have our own panel discussions that we discuss the topic at hand, and then we bring our recommendations to member states to advocate. So parallel events are definitely going to happen on this platform. We are hoping to launch the platform by mid-November, and here's how I'm going to put it into a nutshell. We're sending out a MailChimp tomorrow, so anybody in this meeting is the first to hear on what the platform will be like. So you're getting inside information right now, and then we'll announce it to the world next year. The first thing I want to say is that for the 2 weeks, the platform itself, the NGO CSW Virtual Forum, will be 100% free for anybody to join from anywhere in the world. So the parallel events will be free to join, the exhibit halls that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, conversation circles, come and meet me, or something that we're calling, like, you know, we're going to create spaces where it actually, we hope it will feel like you're walking through a hallway and you see somebody and you say, let's go chat about this topic or that topic. Now, that is completely free. But of course, the platform costs us a lot of money. So we're going to find ways of paying for it, right? Because as you all know, NGO CSW survives on what we do with our forum. So leading up to the forum, what we created is what we are calling delegates. So anybody who wants to be a delegate for this virtual forum has two options. You can sign up and pay either $50 or $25. And we're not even creating a criteria where it's global north is 50, global south is 25, or youth is 25 and older is 50, or, you know, we're just saying you decide. If you think you can afford $50, we appreciate people signing up and being a delegate at a $50 per person. And if you can't afford, you're you know, you lost your job or whatever, then we'll accept $25. Those people who will be delegates will have access to the platform, as I said, leading up to the forums. And what that access does is that then you get to see who's doing parallel events, who's signed up from what region, what organizations are planning what events, so that you have an opportunity to reach out to them and say, look, I'm interested in climate. Can we do a parallel event together? So it's going to give you an opportunity to really network and learn about each other and be more prepared for the forum ahead of time. So that's what that $50 is going to buy you. And honestly, I think it is so reasonable. I'm so grateful that we already have 1 or 2 sponsors who are helping us, that we can do this, because the platform that we're actually going to use, many other organizations have charged up to $250 to be part of this platform. Another way that we are going to make some money, and also will be creative and wonderful for some organizations to share their work and network with global activists, is what's called the exhibit hall. The exhibit hall, we're hoping to have at least 20, if not 30 booths. We can have more, but I'm trying to be very, we don't want to overcrowd and overstimulate everyone as well. So the exhibit booths are going to be $1,000 each, and it can be an organization, an individual, but you do need to apply for this. This platform is open for everyone. We want it to be accessible for everyone, but we also are going to be very careful not to have disruptors, anti-feminist, anti-human rights, anti-science activists to come and disrupt the advancements that we are trying to create. So thank you. I'm getting some thumbs up, so I appreciate for people who are going to be supporting us with this. And actually, we're going to help each other to, you know, make sure that that disruption doesn't happen, right? And then also there's going to be another opportunity for organizations who don't want the booth, because a booth is open for 2 weeks, right? It's also work for the organization. You can have open office hours. You can also just have a lot of information there without office hours, where people can come and learn about what you're doing, make comments. Whoever applies will get really serious instructions on how to run a virtual booth. Some of you who are doing some international conferences already know it, and it's really exciting because it is literally like going to an exhibit hall and then walking into a booth and learning about somebody. So the exhibit booths are going to be $1,000 each. The applications for that also will open sometime in mid-November or late November. And there's also an opportunity to be a sponsor. Sponsorship, which is something similar to how you would buy an ad in our handbook. By the way, we will have a handbook and it will be virtual, so don't worry about that. That will list all the parallel events. So the sponsor level is only $500, and that gives you a logo on the platform. And when you click on the logo, you get all the information you need about your organization as well. And hopefully that will be unlimited, that we can create a space for all of these logos. Actually, it will be on the platform, so wherever you go, you can see all these logos rotating or, you know, sharing it. So now, last but not least, the parallel events. The parallel event applications will be much simpler this year. I think what we're really going to look for is who is and what topic are you discussing in your panel discussion, right? Again, it's really to make sure that we are not bringing in disruptors into this platform, so that we are free and feel safe to do our advocacy and really move the needle, as Lopa says from GEF all the time. That's like the word that has kept in my head since last summer. Our goal is to really move the needle on gender equality at all levels. And don't forget, this year's topic is women leadership. So, and one of the ways that we're trying to build this platform, and we want to welcome you in it, is in this shared leadership model, that we're all in this together. And everyone, whatever it is that you do, really makes a difference. You know, the butterfly effect. Everything that we say and do makes a difference. So we need to be careful on what we say, how we say it, and where we say these things. So the parallel events applications will open hopefully by mid-November. That's a little bit later than usual, but like I said, the application process is very small. We just need to know your name, organization, the topic you're discussing, any partners you have, and then we should be able to process that. We'll do it in a rolling fashion so that you can keep applying up until hopefully mid-December to late December. And then here's the fun part. You get to schedule your own parallel event because there are no rooms or times that Susan, Margarita, and I spent our Thanksgiving weekend last year organizing 550 panel discussions in different buildings and rooms. There's no need for that because this platform will be open 24/7. And it's the fact that it's a global event. We're welcoming people from all over the world to schedule this at any time in any language. And you just have to upload once you get the approval from our committee that you're welcome to have a parallel event. Then we'll give you a link and description and explanation on how to do it. And then you just schedule your own event. Once you have that password that you're scheduling your own event with, then from then on, you're free to keep going into the platform and updating speakers. You can even change the time if you decide that, you know, that time didn't work out because again, but you will also have an opportunity to see who else has scheduled what. So let's say your friend has an event that you want to attend and your event is at the same time, you'll have an opportunity to switch around. And again, and you know what it's like to organize these parallel events. So your speakers schedule, your moderators schedule, your audience's schedule, you have to think about all of that. But the responsibility of scheduling is all yours. Yay! I thought that might be exciting for people. I know Margarita and Susan are celebrating with me that we don't have to schedule these parallel events. So all of this is happening because we have an amazing global planning committee. And as some of you who are NGO CSW New York members on this call, you've all done so much work in the past in helping us plan these forums. We used to meet once a month in either Church Center or Salvation Army to think about what it is that we're doing. Well, now even that is all online. And because it's all online and because we want to model this shared global leadership, we decided that the planning committee was going to be, as usual, all the members of our executive committee, the New York Executive Committee, which you can see their names on our website as well, and also the co-chairs of our NGO CSWs in the region. As you know, we have Geneva and Vienna for 46 years. It's always been Geneva, Vienna, and New York. And then about 6-7 years ago or 8 years ago, Sun Young, who was the chair at the time, had the foresight to really reinforce our regions by creating the NGO CSWs in the regions. So we have MENA, Middle East, South America, Africa, Asia, and the other three, right? New York and all of that. And I see your hands. Please put your questions in the chat. Devin, Ivy, or anybody from the executive committee who has the answers will put it in the chat. I really don't want to open up the floor. I'm sorry to say that to Q&A right now, because I want to get through my announcements so that we can have this, we can participate in this most amazing panel discussion that we're having in the breakout groups that Ivy and Rosalie scheduled. So yes, anybody who has their hands raised, please put your question in the chat. So the planning committee consists of Executive Committee of New York and the co-chairs of our global sisters in the regions, and also their youth members. We are insisting this year, and I recommend to all of you, if you want to really succeed in this forum, if you really want to shine and you want to be seen, bring in your youth members. I really recommend to to whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you're shining a light to youth members. So we have asked our sisters in the regions all to also bring in youth members as planning committee members. Yes, maybe they won't have as much experience or even understand what the forum is all about, but in my experience, I have learned so much from our youth members and our interns. And for example, our interns this year come to meetings and literally give us their opinions on what it is that we need to do, even though it's their first year, right? Because a fresh mind, a new perspective is what we need to really make a difference. I think I covered almost all of it. There will be, like I said, and again, once we get this platform launched, you will get a lot of emails. You will hear more about what it is that we're doing each step of the way. We have, like I said, interns and the office manager who will answer your questions as you learn about this virtual platform by emailing info@ngocsw.org or .com, either way. And then, yes, we might have been delayed a little bit because investigating a platform took longer than we expected, but we are pretty close to launching it. And I think we will open up registration and parallel event applications by mid-November, the latest, and hopefully earlier. Oh, thank you. I just remembered one other. Remember how we used to have artisan fair? So the goal is to really replicate everything that we've ever experienced, even in person. We're even going to have something called actually the marketplace instead of artisan fair, where you will have an opportunity to send us an application of organizations who are selling their goods to help their, women and girls globally. This, as you know, we're very careful not to have just any business come and sell their wares, but really organizations on the ground who sell items to help their work towards gender equality. And thank you for that reminder. I think I have the list covered now. And I want to take a minute for everyone to process this information while I introduce you our two amazing moderators, my vice chair, Ivy Cook, and our member at large, Rosa Lizardi. Sorry. I think I spoke too much already. I don't like keep hearing my voice too much, but I'm sorry that I couldn't open mics to people, because it just gets too chaotic with these many numbers. I'm so grateful for all of you to be there. I want to hand the floor to the moderators, and I'm truly, truly excited to be participating in this panel discussion and the breakout sessions. So I'll see you later. And then once we're done with the meeting, we'll all come back and open up our mics and talk as much as we want. Thank you so much. Ivy and Rosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Huri, and thank you, everyone. I'm hearing a little bit of background noise. I don't know if that's just on me or if we need to mute someone.
Yeah, Devin, I think Devin is trying her best to mute everyone. I really ask everyone to mute themselves so it's much easier and less disruptive. Thank you.
So we're going to keep the introduction short. Welcome again. Today this is our NGO CSW's celebration marking the 20th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. We hope you enjoy this discussion. And I know there's been plenty of events on this same topic this whole month, especially we're peaking right this week and next with the open debate coming up on the 27th. I'm sure you're inundated with so many events right now on this topic. So we hope that it could be a little bit different from what you've been hearing. And that is, you know, NGO CSW is all about engaging as much as possible. So we want to hear from you more. So as you've seen in the program already, we're actually going to spend a good amount of time, about 30 minutes together in breakout groups so that we can hear from you and we can compile those suggestions and ideas from the groups. And so I just wanted to mention that we hope that this is as engaging as possible. And we also don't want it to be like a presentation-based type of discussion. So we've structured it in a way. We asked you when you registered to put in some questions. So we compiled those questions and we've picked some. Of course, there's way too many to cover, but we saw some big themes around what you had asked. So we're going to address that to the speakers, actually. And so it'll be actually a Q&A type of format today with Rosa and I as the moderators talking with panelists. So we don't have any time actually to do a Q&A with you. Like I said, we're going to incorporate it. And I had just a few housekeeping things. So please, throughout the panel discussion part, keep yourself muted. And also, if you can turn off your videos, we want the videos on only for the speakers. It makes it easier to focus. So speakers, make sure all your cameras, your videos are on, and everybody else, please turn your videos off. And I believe I'm having a hard time seeing all of the speakers, but I do see Mavic. Okay, and Rosa's here. So everybody else, if you can please turn off your cameras, and I'm going to just make sure. And Anton is here. So perfect. Perfect. Okay, great. I'm having a hard time maneuvering my computer, so I can't really see everyone at the same time. But again, welcome, and let's jump straight in. I wanted to start, I am very appreciative that we have Anton with us today from the Permanent Mission of Austria. And as many of you may be aware, they had released their second National Action Plan in 2012, and their first was developed in 2007. And so, especially after the SG's report, which will officially come out.
Ivy, you're muted now.
I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened. Okay, so we wanted to first hear from a member state on how nationally they are applying and what their vision is. So what is Austria's vision for their national action plan and for the agenda going forward? So Anton, if you can share some of those.
Thank you very much, Ivy. Good afternoon, or good evening, good morning, wherever all the participants are. It's great to be part of this debate, and I would like to thank the NGO Working Group on CSW, Chair and Vice Chair Huri, Ivy, Rosa, thank you so much. I would also like to...
oh, Anton, I'm so sorry. I totally, before you go ahead, I have to give Rosa the floor because Rosa needs to introduce all of you because I am just jumping straight into the question without having any introduction. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Rosa, please.
Oh, no problem. I was,
thank you.
I was just going with the flow here. So
yeah, thank you, thank you.
Ivy. Thank you so much. Apologies, Anton, if I may call you that. What I wanted to do was introduce the panel so that we have the panelists on video and your full attention can be on them. So let me start by introducing formally Anton Wizlocki, who is the first secretary of the Permanent Mission of Austria to the UN in New York. He covers the Committee on Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Issues, the third committee, as well as the thematic areas of women, peace, and security, youth, peace and security, and children and armed conflict. In his previous position as attaché in the Permanent Mission of Austria to the UN in Vienna in 2018, he acted as a focal point for the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. From 2017 to 2018, he was posted at the Austrian Embassy in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and the Permanent Observer Mission to the African Union as a political affairs attaché. So he comes with a wealth of knowledge, and thank you so much, Anton. I want to now introduce Sarah Douglas. Sarah, can you wave? Okay, there you are. Thank you so much. Sarah Douglas is the Deputy Chief of the Peace and Security Section in UN Women's New York headquarters. Immediately prior to this appointment, Sarah served as the Gender Advisor at the UN Peacekeeping Building Support Office. Previously, she was a policy specialist in the Peace and Security team, leading the section's work on gender responsive peace building. She led in UN Women's work in integrating gender and women's issues into security sector reform, disarmament, demobilization and reintegration, community security and arms control, and other stability processes. So we welcome Sarah. Thank you so much. You will be following Anton. And our civil society partners, thank you so much. I have the pleasure of introducing a longtime friend and colleague, Mavic Cabrera Ballesa. Mavic, you there? Great. She's the executive director and founder of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. Mavic initiated the Philippines National Action Plan process on the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. Mavic has provided technical support on 1325 national action planning in different countries and facilitated costing and budgeting workshops of 1325 national action plans in Georgia, Jordan, and Nepal, where she served also as an international consultant to Nepal's National Action Plan. She pioneered the localization of UNSCR 1325 and 1820 program that is regarded as a best practice example and is now implemented in 15 countries. So warm welcome to Mavic. Thank you. And following Mavic will be Elizabeth Zimba Kisinga. Elizabeth, welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you. A Ugandan national and an economist by profession, Elizabeth is the ACT Alliance regional representative for the African region and the focal point for peace and human security. From 2012 to 2019, she was executive director of the Fellowship of Christian Councils and Churches in the Great Lakes and Horn of Africa, a faith-based organization that focuses on peace building and gender justice in the sub-region. So we thank you all for being with us. I will turn back over to Ivy for our first question.
So sorry about that again. So we'll go back to Anton so that he could share with us what Austria's vision is at this 20th anniversary, looking forward to their women, peace, and security agenda. Anton, sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No, it was actually really helpful and good to hear about the other members of the panel, and actually I'm very happy to be here with Sarah and with Mavic, and nice to meet electronically, at least virtually, Elizabeth. Actually, in my posting in Addis Ababa, we were also covering Uganda, and I had the chance to travel there. And we were also dealing with South Sudan peace process, and the South Sudan Council of Churches was one of the NGOs that not only the Austrian embassy, but most of the partners were closely following their engagement in the revitalization process of the peace agreements. But you asked me a question, and I will try to be short because I guess that there will be many questions. So Austria has actually the Women, Peace and Security agenda is a fundamental part of our foreign policy. In the most recent government coalition agreement, the agenda focuses as one of the priorities of our foreign policy, both on the development, in the development cooperation sphere, as well as multilateral diplomacy. So I think that we are not going to work on a different national action plan, because the feeling in Vienna is that the action plan from 2012 is actually quite comprehensive. And as it is commonly now, I think the echo in the WPS community, it's not about new normative framework, but it's about the implementation. So we are going to work on the implementation of the National Action Plan from 2012. And the first one from 2007 was, as you mentioned, updated in 2012. And on that, we have an angle on, let's say, national capacity building, where we focus especially on, first of all, awareness raising of the topic, but also on capacity building with our military and police sector, and to try to raise the quota of women in our peacekeeping missions. I think there Austria can actually do better in the future. This is quite a long process, but we are trying also through regional workshops where we involve other partner countries in Vienna, and sending our actually officers and women in uniform to other trainings, so that there is more of the women, peace and security agenda mainstreamed, as I said, in the military and in the police. Our focus is, I think, on the development aid, where we are supporting the main UN entities. First of all, UN Women, but we also work closely with the Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund. We are one of the biggest donors for the WPHF, and the goal of this engagement from the Austrian government is actually to really try to foster the women's participation in all conflicts and on all levels of conflict prevention and peace building. So the Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund is closely working with GNWP. I mean, I think Mavic will speak more about that. So I would, and we have actually really tried to foster this partnership between the three, between us, the fund, and GNWP. And localization is I think something where we have we see in our development cooperation that this is really the key to bring the agenda out of New York, out of the Security Council into the field. The Austrian Development Cooperation is focusing on certain geographical regions. So we have one focus, which is actually the Horn of Africa. So we have programs in Ethiopia. These will continue. We have another focus on the South Caucasus, and in this sense, we will continue in the next years our funding. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic and the socioeconomic consequences have impacted the women's grassroots organizations in a very negative way, and the question is really now how they are going to survive. I'm actually quite curious and interested to hear from the members of this discussion how they have witnessed the past months in terms of receiving funding, flexible funding. Yeah, I think then one aspect which I think makes us a little bit particular in comparison to maybe many other European and also NATO members is that we see actually quite a strong link between the WPS agenda and disarmament. We welcome that the Secretary General report this year includes, one part of it addresses the nexus between WPS and disarmament. Austria is championing nuclear disarmament on an international level. So I think this is maybe also one aspect where we will try really to address, this WPS agenda in a cross-sectional way and a cross-cutting way. I think I will finish by mentioning maybe how our national action plan is how we implement the national action plan and how the cooperation with the civil society functions. That might be of interest for the participants. So there is a very strong cooperation between the relevant Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is leading on the review of the implementation, and Austrian NGOs involved in the topic. So there are annual meetings of a working group, and in this working group there are both representatives of from the administration, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Defense, Interior, as well as NGO partners, and they discuss this implementation together. They prepare a report together, and then the report goes through the Council of Ministers, eventually to the Parliament. So I think that is really something important to mention, that we really try on a national level to include the NGOs as efficiently as possible. Well, ahead of the Security Council's open debate next week, we are very interested to see what the outcome of the debate will eventually be. You might all be aware that there is a Security Council resolution draft presented by Russia. We are not member of the Security Council. We have, so we are only partly informed about the ongoing process, but we will of course address this in our statement, that for us the implementation of the existing framework should be the focus of the Security Council, and enlarging this framework through further resolutions might eventually really weaken the framework. So let's see. I mean, let's not be too pessimistic, but at the same time, I would just wanted to finish on that note as an outlook for next week's open debate, that I think that the member states and the community who is supporting the Women, Peace and Security agenda are a bit concerned. Thank you so much. I think I was already quite long. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be posing the next question to Sarah Douglas. We are all anticipating the release of the 2020 report of the Secretary General on Women, Peace and Security. Sarah, can you share brief highlights from the SG's report? Have there been some advancements in the last 5 years? And if so, what are these, and where do you see us going from here? And the one question, if that's also been posed, is, does the report address conflict-affected widows and half-widows? And unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just also dealing with some childcare issues in the background, which was summarized in "Let him watch TV," which I think many of us can relate to that phrase being used quite a bit more this year than last year. Thank you so much, colleagues, for this invitation to address you and to reach out to all of your constituencies and to all my panel members. I've been on a few panels already with Mavic this week, and I think we're getting our routine down well. So I'll go ahead and give a few highlights as was requested by the organizers of the SG's report this year, and then some of the things that we're highlighting for the way forward. So when we started preparing this year's SG's report, we had actually thought we would have a kind of optimistic tone looking at some of the data that we've been compiling in previous years, and also recognizing the significant advances in the normative framework, in the infrastructure and architecture that we have on women, peace, and security in the UN, the very high number of national action plans now, which are over 85, I think is the count that's included in the report. But then when we started to really look at the data, that optimistic picture was not verified by the data that we had, let's put it that way. So just to share a couple of points, women's representation at the peace table is still shockingly low. 10 years ago, we had reported about a 2% figure, but now after all these years, we're only up to 6% of mediators and signatories and 13% of negotiators. Still a very low percentage of women in uniform in the UN, although the number has more than doubled. We're talking about going from 2% in 2010 to only 5% in 2020, despite all of the efforts and all of the initiatives and funds and Security Council resolutions. And then also, I think even more alarming, a kind of downward trend in women's participation in government at the national level. We saw that although 10 years ago, many of the post-conflict countries were performing better than other countries because of quotas, as of 2019, we had only 19% of parliaments in conflict-affected countries were women, as opposed to 25% globally. That's also, to be fair, the fact that the overall number has increased quite a bit in the last 10 years. So basically, development and high-income countries are doing better than they were 10 years ago, but the number in post-conflict countries has actually gone down. Looking now at the COVID pandemic, we've been tracking data showing that 24% of women, 24% of members of COVID task forces worldwide are women, but in conflict-affected countries, it's only 18%. I mentioned the high number of national action plans, but only 20 of them include a budget. Only 24 include disarmament as a focus area, getting to that question of how we link the WPS and disarmament agenda better. And only 17 mention climate change, despite the fact that climate insecurity is becoming an increasing threat to stability. Then the last statistic I'm going to rattle off is one that I find personally very alarming after having worked on this extensively over the last 10 years, is that we also have seen a drop in funding for women's empowerment and gender equality. Earlier in the decade, we were tracking around 5% of ODA going to gender equality and women's empowerment, but this past year it was only 4.5%. So that's actually a decrease. And also, most upsettingly, only 0.2% of all ODA to fragile settings is actually going to women's organizations. And this is also a really big area of concern. At the same time as last year, global military expenditure actually reached 1.9 trillion, which was the largest annual increase in a decade. And this again speaks to the issue of prioritizing spending on disarmament, on armaments and conflict, instead of investing in social infrastructure and prevention that would not only be a lot less costly financially, but a lot less costly on people's lives and well-beings and the planet, etc. So now a couple of words on the pandemic, because we can see this is already having a significant impact on women, peace, and security. We've all witnessed and seen the increase in domestic violence, but also a massive increase in demand for humanitarian services. UNFPA has estimated an additional 50 million women will have unmet contraceptive needs this year. Increased hunger, increased burdens of care, which does not go to conflict-affected countries alone, but across the world. Women do 3 to 7 times as much unpaid care. So that also has a very compounding effect in the current crisis. UN Women and UNDP have also launched a COVID policy tracker, and we found that only 11% of the COVID policies in post-conflict countries have any kind of consideration of gender, which is also very alarming, just considering the gendered impact of this crisis along with many others. So the last word I'll make about the SG's report is that the SG has made some very forward-looking goals for the next decade. And one of the messages of the report is that we have all the commitments, we have all the action plans, we have all the targets, we need to implement them. So we did not want this report to end with a bunch of recommendations that we've already made before and kind of regurgitate and rehash things that have been said for the last 20 years. So the report says everything that has been said before, please do it, implement the existing commitments, frameworks, directives, etc. And then the SG lays out 5 goals that will take us to 2020, also in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, that women, peace, and security and gender responsive approaches are a catalyzer to help reach the SDGs. So the first one is women's equal and meaningful participation at all levels. The second one is an unconditional defense of women's rights and women's rights defenders, which we've seen an alarming increase of women's rights, attacks on women's rights defenders, not only in the context of post-conflict in several countries like Colombia and Philippines, but also in the context of the COVID lockdowns. Thirdly, a reversing of that trajectory of military expenditure and much more investment in social spending that will boost up human security. Fourthly, a gender data revolution. We've seen how much traction our agenda has gotten as our data and evidence has increased, although at the end of the day, we know that that's not always enough, but we really need to reach the general public and close all these data gaps so we have a better knowledge of what's happening and what are the pressing issues. And then lastly, increasing ODA to women's organizations by 5 times. So galvanizing the donor community to reach the 15% target that we've made and multiplying the direct assistance to women's organizations by 5. Now, I know there's another question about widows. Do you want me to answer that?
Yes. Well, you know what? I think we really want to go to Mavic because I
Okay.
think that she may have to leave early as well. But yeah, we might be able to circle back. So
Okay,
thank you so
great.
much,
Thank you
Sarah.
so much.
That's really great. And we'll try to get those 5 goals in the chat. So Ivy, over to you.
Yes, so Mavic, I know that you need to leave any minute, so hopefully you can address this and anything else you wanted to highlight before. But as we know that you helped Armenia with their National Action Plan, which they put together last year. It was their first one. And as we know, unfortunately, in these recent months, you know, the conflict that's been ensuing with Azerbaijan, and it makes us question, you know, why are NAPs necessary, you know, especially when it seems like it's not really impacting people's lives. Why do we have to actually have them and hold, you know, how do we hold governments accountable for them? But any way you want to address that and anything else before you need to go. So thank you, Mabe.
Thank you, Ivy. And thank you to the NGO working group, NGO CSW, for organizing this important conversation. First, I would like to clarify about the National Action Plan. And there might be some perception that some national action plans are not being implemented. It is true in some countries. But when civil society participates in the development of national action plans, beginning from drafting to actual implementation, especially localization, to monitoring and evaluation, and of course, prior to, after drafting is costing and budgeting, the national action plans are really impactful and effective. And we've worked, the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, with support from Austria and other donors, have worked in over 20 countries to provide technical support in national action planning and implementation. They are the best instrument to actually hold governments accountable, because a good national action plan is an executable, time-bound commitment of member states to translate the words of 1325 and supporting resolutions into necessary and practical actions on the ground, and especially when localization is a key implementation strategy.
Excuse me, if you can please mute Fatou.
And we have so many examples of what difference the national action plans make when they are effectively implemented. Just before I go to Armenia, in Uganda, for example, where again we are supported by the Austrian Development Cooperation, in local districts where the national action plan is localized, we have documented that there's 6 times more reporting of sexual and gender-based violence, which could lead to reducing and hopefully completely preventing impunity. In South Sudan, where we've also provided support to a national action planning, the women who participated in that process are also very active in monitoring the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement between the government and the South Sudanese People's Liberation Army in opposition. So there are concrete evidence where, that national action plans are working, especially when civil society are participating, and localization is a key implementation strategy. So in Armenia, yes, we've actually been working in Armenia and Azerbaijan, also with the support of ADA, since 2013, beginning from monitoring the implementation of the WPS commitment of the government, and monitoring being done by civil society. And we've had many dialogues with the government on how an effective national action plan should be developed and implemented. And as you said, they finally adapted it. But there's more to the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh that the national action plan would not, and the national action plan would not be sufficient to completely address that. But what it does is it gives civil society an instrument to hold not just the government accountable, but also the mediating bodies, such as the Minsk group of OSCE, the Organization for Security Cooperation in Europe, to ensure that women are participating. And there's more than enough evidence of what difference it makes when women are at the peace negotiation table. But somehow, some actors, including mediators in track 1 negotiation, don't seem to get it. So this is the problem actually in the negotiation over Nagorno-Karabakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And sad to say, some civil society actors are also caught in, you know, in the divide, in taking sides. But at the same time, I think I would like to, you know, emphasize more those who cross the line, so to speak, between what their governments are, you know, are telling them what to do, or what the governments or the militaristic positions that the governments are taking. And, you know, we all know that military solution never worked. If at all, it aggravated the levels of violence. And as we've seen in this case, since only, you know, since less than a month ago, the violence has escalated, and the number of casualties is increasing. So the women that we've worked with, in fact, we've traveled Armenian and Azerbaijani organizations together to come with their common positions to call on both their governments as well as other member states who are, you know, part of the conflict, Turkey and Russia, for example, that, you know, you are interested in conflict, and there's more attention to those who are waging the war than those who are waging the peace, which are mostly local women and peace activists. You have more control over the resources, you gain more attention, but we'll do everything we can. And all we've got is ourselves, as you know, many local women peace builders are saying, and our backs are literally pushed on the wall, and we don't have other options but to fight back. And fight back, by that they mean fight back not using arms, but fight back pushing for peace and pushing for the right to be at the negotiation table. And this is very much at the core of national action plans in many countries where civil society are one of the drafters. I just wanted also to address the point about COVID-19. The pandemic is a conflict multiplier because it increases competition for resources, including healthcare services. And as Anton pointed out, it threatens the very existence of women peace building organizations, especially grassroots organizations. So we're very grateful for the support of our donor partners like Austria, Canada, and Norway that allowed us to pivot very quickly and adjust to the situation. And the Women, Peace and Security agenda is really a crisis prevention agenda, and it is within the DNA of local women peace builders to be on the front line, whether it's, you know, it's an armed conflict or a global health crisis as a pandemic. They do not retreat, you know, fearing for, you know, their own lives. Their concern is how to serve their communities. So all over the world, in all places where there are conflict, women peace builders have automatically became first responders and frontliners as they are monitoring ceasefires, as they are promoting the implementation of national action plans. They were sewing face masks, they were distributing hygiene packs, and Sarah earlier cited the statistics of women who won't have access to reproductive health care. And in our partners in Colombia, for example, they're also distributing contraception and pregnancy test kit along with the food packs and medicines and face masks. So right now, what we're really advocating for in national action plans, going back to this very important instruments in implementing the Women, Peace and Security agenda, is to use a gender responsive and conflict sensitive analysis of the conflict. and all of our intervention. COVID is not the only pandemic that we will face. We are sure of that. And most of the humanitarian emergencies are also happening because of armed conflict. So we can no longer look at these two issues as separate. The COVID-19 pandemic has become a teachable moment on multidimensional and intersectional response to crisis and conflict. And national action plans are beginning to look at them that way.
Great, thank you so much. That is a lot of information. And thank you so much for really kind of getting us into the issue of this COVID conflict multiplier. That is so true. So we're going to have our last questions for Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, we know that you are approaching this from a faith-based organization. You're addressing peace, women, peace, and security within the family unit. We'd like to find out, you know, what are the daily actions that we should take and that young people should take regarding designing their future, and how do you bring your life's work into this, and people are interested in, you know, your inspiration and motivation in doing this as well.
Thank you very much, moderator. I want to appreciate the invitation. And as I've written in the chat, this is my first time. I thank my colleague Alison Kerry for reaching out to me via Ivy. So thank you very much. Let me give some reflections on these questions. Is to highlight that COVID-19 pandemic has uniquely affected women in Africa due to their role as caregivers. They are the front runners for caregiving in homes. We also notice, just to check, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Wonderful, wonderful. They care for people in homes. We also know that 60% caregivers, they are the women in health facilities. They get engaged in local markets, which are actually congested, and other informal businesses, which are dominated by women. And so when it comes to safeguarding, we have seen efforts by the national governments to mainstream gender on the COVID-19 response, especially the committees, the task forces that are set up. There have been efforts to include women, to ensure women participation, which has given a focused, women-focused attention in the response to COVID-19. We have also seen the continued role of the media in partnership with the civil society organizations, highlighting the plight of women, including raising the issues of domestic violence, neglect, and killings. And so this has led and increased the protection role of security organs and other related government agencies to act and to apprehend the culprits. There has also been information provision and sharing on various aspects, including the standard operating procedures for COVID-19. And also, we have seen a great role by civil society organizations in the area of protection by addressing sexual gender-based violence, domestic violence, which has really gone up in Africa. The teenage pregnancy, the rates are very high, have been high in these months of lockdowns, and the children, the girl child, are not going to school. Of course, schools have been closed down. Actually, for example, Uganda today, the National Examinations Board has announced that the schools should allow pregnant teenagers to go back to school and to be readmitted, because normally schools have been expelling young girls that get pregnant during school time. It is true COVID-19 has increased family violent conflicts, especially gender-based violence, due to frustration that have been caused by economic hardships and relationship challenges. I want to cite an example of Rwanda, where the faith women have been involved in family conflict resolution, providing counseling services. It is also important that the women are advocating for non-violence. They have been encouraging dialogue, mediation, and the civil society organizations, together with the faith-based organizations, have been supporting these initiatives and encouraging a conducive space and environment for dialogue in families. The faith-based organizations have been emphasizing family values, values like love, respect for each other, tolerance, patience, and the need to emphasize the role of religious leaders. Religious leaders have reached out to the family units, and we know how closer these are to the families. And they have created that environment where women and children have been able to speak out and to open up. In terms of collaborative efforts and strengthening the families, I wish to think that the aspect of coalitions and the community-based women groups and linking these at the different levels will make a positive contribution. I want to give an example that we do have what we call the Regional Faith Women Mediation Network that we formed 2 years ago. And this network is concentrated in the Great Lakes and in the Horn of Africa. And they have formed national chapters, country chapters, in order to support fellow women, in order to engage, in order to advocate, and in order to showcase their efforts. I would like to talk about the couch of trust for women, peace builders, and the grassroots women. And I still think that we need to strengthen networking and collaboration, both within, among the women, but also with other peace actors at individual and organizational level. Bringing together the women peace builders from the different tracks, reflect together and to exchange ideas, to learn from each other. Linkages at the different levels, from the grassroots to the regions, to the sub-regions, and to the international levels. That those linkages should be created or should be strengthened. And also this goes with strengthening networking and collaboration, and of course the commitment to the mission of the peace actors.
Thank
Providing
you, Elizabeth.
forums and spaces. Allow me to conclude on the issue of the young people. Quickly, I will use 1 minute in terms of mentorship.
Okay, great, thanks.
The young people will need mentorship. They will need continuous engagement and giving space, skilling, capacity enhancement, and exposure opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that perspective. We might have time in the breakout groups for more questions to our speakers. So I'll give over to Ivy, who will be instructing us about the breakout groups. Thank you to all our speakers.
Yes, thank you. Of course, we are always ambitious about trying to fit in so much in such little time. So we would love to, of course, hear from you a lot more. And I hope some of these discussions continue in the breakout groups. What we're about to do is, when you registered, you had picked a group. There's one of 6 that we're dividing into, and those are the women, peace, and security in relation to, through the lens through climate. There's a group called Hotspots. Climate's going to be facilitated by Rosa, and Hotspots by Huri, and general topic of WPS by Pamela, and the youth, peace, and security agenda and intergenerational leadership by me, and violence against women by Safira, and national action plans and UN mechanisms by Susan. And so now we're going to get into those groups. We're going to have 4 questions that we're posing to all the groups, and we'll come back for lightning reports. So each group, you'll need to pick someone to do the note taking, and we only want like 3 to 5 bullet points from your discussion. And these 3 to 5, we would like you to type into the Padlet. So Padlet is going to come up. Devon's it'll be easy. I think she's gonna pull it up, and then you just need to type in your notes. And then when we report back, we only have 2 minutes per group. So a very quick 3 to 5 highlights. And I think that's about it. And then the questions, again, I think that will be posted when we're in the groups, and the facilitators can read them to you too. So enjoy. We're gonna have the 20, I think it'll end up being 20 minutes in groups, and then we'll come back. Okay?
Armed conflict at the UN, and we'll put that information in the link. So that was great. That was within a lightning speed.
November 6th.
November 6th. Yeah, please put in the chat, Ellen. Thank you. So we're going to turn to number 2, which is hotspots, and that was Huri's group, which she was facilitating. Do we have a rapporteur who's going to report back in lightning speed?
Yes, I want to ask one more time. Does anybody want to step up? Because everybody was a little shy in my group. If not, okay, I guess I will do it. I really didn't want to have to be the one to speak again. But it was a really good conversation. We were a small group, but we had Anton with us. We had a member state, so it was really exciting to get his input as well. Several points with current hotspots. We had a comment about refugees and migrants being key in security. We also talk about demilitarization, especially since we heard from Sarah about the almost 2 trillion spent in the last, in the current past. And also our, we heard that there were 47 states who ratified this armament, and we needed that we need 3 more. And we were discussing about how to really engage with our member states, either nationally or at UN level, to get them to sign on and to help the demilitarizers, the disarmament. And let's see, the last one was Margaret, who put it in the chat, and I just want to read it out. Concern about non-state actors. Member states must be stronger at dealing with them in Mozambique, Congo, and other locations. So yeah, we didn't even get to Armenia as hotspot, but you know, we know what's going on over there. Next.
Yes, unfortunately. So we have the next group, which was the General Women, Peace and Security breakout group. Pamela was a facilitator there. Pamela, do we have someone who can report back?
Yes, we do, Hashem.
Can you unmute Hashem?
Oh, Hashem disappeared. Okay. Is there anyone else from the group who would like to report out? We had a very good group.
Any other brave person to step forward? Or Pam, do you want to do that?
Okay, I'll do it quickly. We spoke about the importance of having senior authorities involved. We looked at media portrayals and how they were very often inaccurate, and how we need to change that and get information into the media. We spoke about the importance of good role models, open communications. We have 2 people on our team who are podcasters, and they are actually willing to work with NGO CSW to do some podcasting, trying to make a difference. And then lastly, we spoke about the importance
many people were looking for best practice being shared around engaging young women, and that there's an opportunity within the context of COVID possibly in order to bring in young women as well. We also talked about the role of particularly women bringing up the next generation. So women's role in youth and peace and security, and how they can bring the next generation up in peace and conflict transformation, as well as the importance of engaging young women in pre-leadership and conflict training, and kind of around bringing them in on other programs in order to then prepare them while they may not see themselves as leaders, and then to go on to leadership and conflict training that will allow them to explore deeper human rights and social justice issues. And I think that's sort of the highlights from our group, unless anybody has anything to add.
Thank you, Sarah. That was enlightening speed too. Everyone is doing so well. Okay, we have 2 more groups to report back. And also, if I can direct you, the Padlet, and maybe Devin can put the link in the chat. you can actually follow and have notes and see the notes in the Padlet. But as Huri has mentioned, the recording and minutes will be shared with all the links as well to the group. So we have violence against women. Safira?
I think it's Shane.
Shanae.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, how are you?
Shanae.
So we have an amazing group, great conversation. The primary thing that we were talking about was holding governments accountable. If we really think about it, systems are really dominated by men, and this shift, this paradigm shift really needs to move into women being in power. So the women being the forefront is the most important thing. That also brings up the need for more intergenerational coalition, communicating and developing ideas. So different age groups actually have different experiences. So the young can express their experiences, especially now with technology in modern times and all the different abuses that are occurring, even through the internet and technology. And the older generations can, give their experiences and their wisdom. So being able to discuss these things intergenerationally is just extremely important. The other thing we were talking about was empowering these organizations with financial resources on the grassroots level. This just means more coordination among stakeholders. This would need to be done internationally and nationally. Input from survivors is crucial in changing and updating policies. And the one thing that we had that I think everyone completely agreed on, which was by Linda, I believe her last name is McDonald, but declare violence against women as a crime against humanity. And I think that we were all 100% in agreement with that.
That is marvelous. Thank you, Shanae. A lot of information there. And we're going to go to our last group, National Action Plans, that was facilitated by Susan. I'm not sure who's going to be reporting back. And again, these highlights we will compile and we will share with Sarah from UN Women and a contact at the Secretary General's office, so that it doesn't just float in, online iCloud, but we actually can provide these inputs to our colleagues. So who will be reporting back for National Action Plans?
Rahel?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the question that our group addressed is, what is needed to move the needle on women, peace, and security in the next 5 years? The first point that we came up with is economic independence and financial inclusion of women, especially in post-conflict peace-building contexts. So increasing opportunities for women, not only for employment, but also to have their own bank account, to own their own land, to have their own businesses, because all of those factors and opportunities have cascading effects on improving overall health and social outcomes. So for example, if a woman has economic independence or the prospect of economic independence, she's more likely to complete her schooling, at least to the high school level, and less likely to be forced into early marriage. All of those factors, as we know, contribute to escalated conflict. The second point is increasing collection and analysis of gender disaggregated data. So build upon the cost analyses that were mentioned in this SG report that indicates where the gaps are between military expenditures and investments in women-led organizations and women-focused programs on the ground. So we need a better database that is specifically for gender disaggregated data. That way we can truly have a better understanding of who are the most vulnerable populations, where they are, how they're being affected, and that way we can design and develop peace-building programs that are tailored specifically to them at the municipal and state levels. The third point is mandate that a gender expert be appointed to every conflict mediation and peace negotiation team. This doesn't mean just mandating that having clauses or mandating that women have to be included, but specifically a gender expert, not just somebody who is there on the basis of their sex or assigned sex and gender, but somebody who is actually an expert in gender dynamics and understands the local context. Also include quotas for the minimum number of women, and this would also extend to the minimum number of sexual and gender minorities that must be included in every negotiation team and every peacekeeping mission at the country, state, and municipal level. Those are our 3 main points.
Thank you, Rahel. That was fantastic. And I see they're all recorded here on the Padlet. That is great reporting. Thank you. That point about the data really underscores one of the 5 forward-looking goals of the Secretary General that was mentioned by Sarah, the Gender Data Revolution. So fantastic. I'm going to hand it over to Ivy now. I think we might have a little bit of time for a speaker to respond. Thank you.
Yes, actually, I'm putting Sarah on the spot. But if you had just a couple of points or thoughts, final thoughts you wanted to share with the group, and then Anton also to do that so that we end at 3, but we have about 6 minutes left. So I want to squeeze every minute. Thank you.
Sure. So thank you so much. And I think actually I just was listening in my group because there was tremendous synergy or confluence, I would say, with what the group said with the 5 goals that I outlined for the next 10 years. So that was also very heartening and affirming, I think, and I can tell this group that it's not always easy to advance those points within the UN system bureaucracy, but I think we did manage to have some quite feminist and radical recommendations and action points this year. So I think that it means a lot to know that they resonated with this group. And maybe I'll just circle back to address the question that had been posed about widows. And without giving a specific answer on that, just to say that another area that I think we need to really improve on as a Women, Peace and Security is intersectionality across the board. Because I think we have spent so much time, and it gets to the colleague's point about gender expertise, you know, those nuances have often been lost when we are just trying to get women in the door. We're just trying to get the word woman on a page, the word gender on a page. So the room for nuances or intersectional approaches, I think, has been really squeezed out. And that's our next challenge, I think, for also the next 5 years, is to develop the agenda to be much more nuanced and responsive to disability, to also LGBTIQ, to youth. I mean, I think we've come further on youth than other areas, but it's still a long way to go. So I think that's also something that we continue to value feedback and engagement from this group and your constituencies on. So I'll leave it there, but thank you so much to the organizers.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, intersectionality is a key word now. And Anton?
Thank you so much. Well, it's actually quite difficult to be among the last ones to speak now, but I will try. I think for me, as I'm a representative of the member state, it was really very fruitful, very interesting. I hear the clear call for disarmament and the linkages to the Women, Peace and Security agenda, addressing sexual and gender-based violence, accountability, and I think here the member states, they have, you know, in the rule-based international order that we are trying to build, that the member states were trying to build in the last 75 years with the UN, we have a clear role to not give up and to push back the pushback. This is a very popular sentence among like-minded member states in New York. We have seen a clear pushback to women's rights. Also in the Security Council debates. So to defend the ground, I think, in the Security Council for the member states who are there, and to defend the ground in all the negotiations that we are conducting at the UN, also in the CSW context, and to remain accountable to the CSO community and in general to international partners in terms of spending in ODA, and maybe a last word, how member states can follow up on their commitments. We have seen some very interesting models, for instance, by Germany and the UK, to really, pledge high-level commitments 2 years ago in 2019, and over the following of 24 months to really try to fulfill those and to advance the agenda a little bit more. And I think those type of coalitions of the willing in specific areas could push the agenda forward. And I think that an interesting project in this sense is the Generation Equality Forum. We haven't had time to address this, but the big project by UN Women, France and Mexico, together with the global civil society, has one pillar on women, peace and security and humanitarian action, and Austria is really looking into joining that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anton, for leading this conversation at the Generation Equality Forum, which NGO CSW is actively participating in. And it was included in the chat at some point, the compact and the details of that, so you have more information. But we're going to compile all of these and share it back to you, so you don't have to worry about losing the chats and things like that. And also, I wanted to thank all the panelists. Thank you so much for being with us, Anton and Sarah and Elizabeth. I know you're still on, and Mavic, who's probably sleeping now. But thank you, everyone, and stay safe and take care. And we will see you. I think this is when we all turn on our mics and say hello, bye-bye. Is that right, Huri? That's our tradition.
Absolutely.
Now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Energy of the voice is really important. Thank you.
Adios. Hasta luego.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.